Hey folks, Todd here. Today we're going to install the GoRack from RealTruck. Now this is a universal installation, but we're going to show you how to install it on a truck equipped with a T-slot rail like what we have with this RetraxPRO XR. The tools I'll be using for this installation are a 4mm Allen wrench, a 5mm Allen wrench, a 13mm ratcheting wrench. I'll also be using a ratchet with a 13mm socket. Let's go ahead and get started. No matter what truck configuration you're going to install your overland rack on, the rack itself installs the same. I'm going to build one side, the other side installs the exact same way. So we're going to start with our top extrusion. All right, the first thing we want to do is focus on the orientation of our extrusion. Now, you're going to notice we've got multiple faces on this extrusion. Only one of those faces has a singular T-slot. That's going to be the top of the extrusion. Now, if you go to the bottom of that, just opposite of that extrusion, you're going to see we've got two open T-slots, and then on the back side, 90-degree angle from that, we'll want to keep that in mind too, because of these two, in this slot right here, we're going to be putting a different number of T-nuts as we do for this one. So on our 90-degree side, we're going to take our T-nuts and we're going to slide 6 T-nuts into that slot. Now this is what a T-nut looks like. So we'll go ahead and slide 6 T-nuts into there. And in this extrusion, we're going to slide in 2 T-nuts. All right, now let's go ahead and flip it upside down and construct the side. Okay, I've got all my side panels laid out. I've got a side molly panel here, and then my center molly panel. We need to go ahead and attach that to our extrusion. So what I'm going to do is turn this upside down. Now the bottom of the extrusion here, you can see where we've got our T-nuts in place. What we're going to need to do is have 3 of those T-nuts to support this panel. So we're going to go ahead and separate those out and get those lined up like so. All right, and then we're going to need 2 of those T-nuts to line up to the center panel, and then 3 T-nuts for this other side panel. Let's go ahead and start putting those together. All right, so our side panels are going to mount to our extrusion just like so. It needs to go all the way to the end of the extrusion. So what we're going to do is we're going to get out of our hardware kit a flat washer and an M6 bolt. These are the M6 by 12 bolts, so it's the smaller of the M6 bolts. We're going to go ahead and get those started into the T-nut. I like to get it all the way to the edge. We're going to set up all of our T-nuts just like that. Once we get those connected, we just want to have them kind of finger tight for right now. We still need to make minor adjustments. All right, now go ahead and repeat that on the opposite side. All right, now here we have the center molly panel. What we're going to do is we're going to line that up just the same way we did the sides. Go ahead and get the hardware started. Again, we're only putting this stuff in finger tight for right now. We'll come back up and snug it down later. We also want to center this side to side between the side panels. Okay, now we've got it centered side to side. What we're going to do is we're going to use our hardware that's in our kit. We're going to have some M8 bolts. Those are a little bit wider than the M6, and we're going to use the shorter of our M8 bolts, go through a flat washer into our centered extrusion down here at the bottom, and then attach a serrated flange nut on the top. do the same on the opposite side. All right, now let's go ahead and install our end caps. Okay, so here is the leg that's going to work as the end cap to the side of our rack. Now we want to make sure that that leg profile kind of matches the side of the rack. Also, we want to have the open end of the leg facing to the outside. Now when we look on the inside of that channel, we're going to see 2 holes here and 2 holes here. Those holes are going to be lining up to these 2 holes that are threaded in the side of the extrusion, and these 2 holes in the side of our molly panel. Now before we set that in place, we're going to be closing off these channels, so we want to go ahead and put a couple of T-nuts in each one of those channels. Now make sure again that the top of the T-nut is facing the open end of that channel. All right, and once we have 2 T-nuts in each channel, we can go ahead and get this lined up. We're going to have some longer M8 bolts in our kit. Use a washer with each one of those M8 bolts. We're going to go ahead and line that up through these holes and get them started into the holes in the extrusion. Again, don't tighten anything down just yet. We're not to that point. We still need to make final adjustments before we can do that. So just get those kind of threaded in place. All right, and then also M8 longer bolt with washer going through the sides over here. And on the inside of that molly panel, we're going to use a serrated flange nut for each one of those bolts. Here's our serrated flange nut. All right, and we're going to go ahead and fasten the other leg to the opposite side the exact same way. Again, just don't tighten them down just yet. Okay, so now here is our connecting piece. What we're going to do is we're going to line that up. You'll see we got 2 holes here. They're going to line up to these 2 holes, and these 2 holes need to line up to this track. Now to get this done the easiest way, what we're going to do is we're going to line these up to our T-nuts first. We're going to use the M6 with flat washer, go through each of the holes and get them started. But we want to be able to make sure we can slide it back and forth. All right, once you have those started, go ahead and slide this over to where these 2 holes line up to the holes in our leg or end cap. Then we're going to take the longer M8 bolts with washer, go up from the back side, and then use a serrated flange nut to attach those. And we're going to do that with both of those holes. All right, now you'll notice that all of this stuff is still loose. So what we want to do is make sure everything lines up properly when you get it all tightened down. So I'm going to follow a certain tightening sequence. What we're going to do is make sure that this is kind of lined up to the profile on the leg. And then we're going to go ahead and use a 5mm Allen wrench, hold the nut in place on the bottom, and then tighten that nut with a 13 millimeter. All right, and go ahead and do the next bolt the same way. Okay, so here are the two M8 bolts that are holding our leg end cap to the extrusion. We're going to go ahead and tighten both of those down now with a 5 millimeter Allen wrench to get that drawn together. All right, now moving to the bottom of our leg end cap, we've got our two M8 bolts going through here. I'm going to use our 5 millimeter Allen wrench and hold those. You're not going to be able to see that. I'm going to hold those steady with the Allen wrench. I'm going to use a 13 millimeter on the serrated flange nuts and snug those up. All right, next we can go ahead and focus up here where we've got our two 6 millimeter bolts. We're going to use our 4 millimeter Allen wrench and go ahead and snug those up. All right, now that we've repeated this process on the opposite side, we can go ahead and focus on tightening down our side and center molly panels. Again, we're just going to use a 4 millimeter Allen wrench and tighten down all of these bolts. All right, and now that our side and center panels are tightened to their extrusion, we're going to go ahead and line these up and tighten this hardware up top down. We're going to use a 5 millimeter on our M8 bolt on the top and a 13 millimeter for the nut. So our 5 millimeter Allen wrench. All right, now repeat the same process for the other side of the rack. Now, if you have a T-slot rail like what we have on our RetraxPRO XR here, we're going to have this open slot. We're going to take a couple of stud plates and slide them into that open slot. Now, one of the stud plates we're going to keep back here. The other one we're going to send up towards the front. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and take our rack side and we're going to set it on top of our rail. Now, because we're using a T-slot rail, what we want to use is the outermost slot on the bottom of the leg and set that over top of our two bolts. Now let's go ahead and set the serrated flange nuts onto the studs and get them tightened down with 13 millimeter. All right, repeat the same on the opposite end and repeat the same process on the opposite side for the rack. Okay, so here we are inside the bed of the truck. This is the front side of our rack, and we've got our two connectors coming off the two sides. What we're gonna do is we're gonna join those with our crossbar. So we're gonna go ahead and set the crossbar down on top of it and kind of get it centered for right now. Now we can go ahead and set the alignment. Okay, now you may notice that because of gravity, our rack is kind of being pulled down into the bed of the truck, so it's not quite level here. So before we attach our crossbar, what we're going to do is correct that. So we're gonna be pulling up on our rack and attaching our hardware. We wanna make sure that the rack is level and straight and that the crossbar remains centered as we install it. So let's go ahead and install our hardware. Okay, now that we know how we're gonna be doing our alignment, we're gonna go ahead and insert two of our carriage bolt. Now the square portion of the carriage bolt is designed to line up to the square portion of the rail. So we're just going to set that in and fit that through, just like so. Go ahead and do two carriage bolts. We'll be doing the exact same thing on the opposite side. All right, and once we got that in where we need it, we're going to go ahead and attach a couple of serrated flange nuts on the back side of these carriage bolts. And we're going to tighten that down with a 13 millimeter. Repeat that on the opposite side. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and repeat the same process on the rear bar. All right, now we can go ahead and put our caps on our legs. What we're going to do, if you notice, we've got kind of an angle that goes across here. We've got a couple of holes that are match up to the old holes in the leg. On the opposite side of the holes in the leg, we do have some welded nuts, so there are threads behind here. On the inside of here, we've also got a plate with a weld nut on there, and that's going to slide to the inside of the leg to match up with this hole. So what we're going to do is just kind of slide it into place. And then we're going to use the M6 by 20 bolts that are in our kit. So these are the larger M6 bolts with a flat washer. And we're just going to go ahead and run through and get those bolts connected. Don't tighten them down just yet. We've got 3 points of contact, so we want to make sure that we're connecting before we tighten down. That way we won't create a bind issue. Once you have all three that are connected, then we can go ahead and start tightening them down using the 4 millimeter Allen wrench. All right, and then repeat the exact same process on the other three corners. Well, that concludes the installation. If you have any questions, call the experts or visit us online at RealTruck.com.